And I brought a little something for each one of you, so stop your bickering. Aiden, I even brought a little something for you. Well, it's not 6.5 Creedmoor, but at least it's CZ. Welcome to the Milsurf Mike channel. A couple years ago I released a video on the VZ-24, and in the lead up to that pistol I talked at some length about how Czech designed and built weapons are some of the best in the world leading up to the Second World War, discussing how arms such as the Panzer 38T tank and Czech machine guns were superior to those in Germany, and one of the reasons Hitler desired the Sudetenland. Another example of this high Czech quality can be demonstrated by one of the smoothest 7.92 by 57mm Mausers ever made, the VZ-24. World War I saw a desire from the belligerents to move away from the long, turn-of-the-century length rifles to something more manageable in tighter spaces while still retaining accuracy. Shorter rifles were as accurate at the most common combat distances of the Great War, as shown by the SMLE and Springfield 1903 rifles. The post-war, newly formed state of Czechoslovakia was no exception. They bought Gewehr 98s from Germany after the war and produced their own version, the VZ-98-22, for a short time. The parent to the parent of today's CZ started working on a Czech-designed rifle that used the Mauser action, but shorter than the Gewehr 98. This became the CZ-24, which was 5.9 inches shorter than the Gewehr 98, fired the 7.92 by 57mm round, had a single-piece walnut stock with pistol grip, and the upper handguard went as far up the muzzle as the stock lower handguard did, while having a cut to go around the rear sight. Much more wood than the later K98Ks from Germany. The rear sight had a minimum setting of 300 meters compared to the later K98K's 100 meters. The VZ-24 had a 90-degree bolt handle as opposed to the turn-down handle of the K98K. The build quality of the VZ-24s were excellent, some of the best in the world. Production began in the Brno factory and later in Povasta Bystrica. I'm not 100% sure I pronounced that correctly, but that's in modern-day Slovakia. A couple-hour car ride from where Bald and Curious's Grand Power is made. Hundreds of thousands of these rifles were exported in various calibers to South America, Romania, and the Republican Spain prior to Nazi Germany take over Czechoslovakia. It is the German takeover where superior Czech arms found their way into the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS. As seen from many of my videos, Germany would keep arms plants in conquered nations going, adopting them for their own use. VZ-24 rifles that were used in the German army became the VZ-24T, denoting foreign origin. The Povazka Bystrica rifles were almost exclusively VZ-24Ts until they were converted over to producing K98Ks, which wasn't difficult due to the similarity of the rifles. The Brno factory produced rifles for the Czech units as well as export to Romania, which was also part of the Axis. This is what my rifle was, an export to Romania. The telltale markings of this is the second R in the serial number. The first letter denoted which batch of rifles it was in. Each batch contained 25,000 rifles, with nearly 625,000 sent to Romania. The first R would put mine around 450,000 rifles for this purpose. Also an indicator of Romanian export is the C over N Romanian inspector's mark. Instead of a crest on the receiver, mine is just noted with the year of production, 1940, and the fact that it's called a VZ-24 and not a VZ-24T. Production of the rifles continued after the war as the VZ-98N, although it was closer to the K98K by this time than the original VZ-24. Its service life ended in 1952 with the adoption of the VZ-52 rifle, although this rifle is so robust that it has shown up in many modern-day conflicts. A little about my rifle. I already talked about the export to Romania aspect, so I'll just talk about shooting it. This rifle really turned out to be a nice surprise. It sat at one of my favorite gun shops, Triple J Guns in Smithville, Missouri, for a long time with a $350 to $400 price tag on it. During my revolver kick last spring, my Milsurf itch started to return and I decided to pick it up. I knew the bolt ran smoothly, but after cleaning it up and taking it shooted, This is the smoothest Mauser I've ever shot. Before I crown the VZ-24 as one of the greatest Mausers, we need to keep in mind some limitations. Namely, my experience with Mausers is mostly to what I own, and the differing conditions due to use and age. Still, the VZ looks worse than my K98K, but I would take it any day over any of my other 8mm Mausers. Please be aware of where your elected officials and the groups that claim to represent you stand on the Constitution. Please join the GOA, the largest no-compromise Pro-2A group out there, and get 20% off your membership by using my link in the description. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also check out my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and who I support on Patreon. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.